I was scrolling through the wasteland that is social media one day when I came across this article from Rice Media. Liquidation Lethargy. The local filmmakers Hooq abandoned in debt. This article was what made me aware of the existence of Singapore's supposedly first ever local streaming service, Hooq, and their abrupt shutdown in 2020. So, what is Hooq? I apparently wasn't the only one not standing vigil at Hooq's casket, not knowing what company this was, as the writers at Goody Feed were equally as clueless. So here's what I found about Hooq after about 10 minutes of googling. Like with Netflix and Disney Plus, Hooq was a video on demand streaming platform. Established in January 2015 by the likes of Singtel, Sony Pictures and Warner Brothers, this seemed like a project destined for greatness. The business plan was to combine the inventory of shows that Sony and Warner Brothers had with Singtel's reach in the Asian market. Hooq was progressively launched in the Philippines, Thailand, India and Indonesia. Hooq's video catalog had a mix of indie locally produced shows and mainstream Hollywood related media. They also were pushing for more original content in order to attract more viewers on their site, announcing the Filmmakers Guild, in which shortlisted local filmmakers were given the budget to film their shows. Now, by the turn of 2020, all seemingly was going well for Hooq. The platform reportedly had 80 million users in India, Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore and the Philippines. Hooq was still commissioning local filmmakers to write exclusive Hooq originals and was also able to clinch a content sharing contract with MediaCorp, the content distribution network for Singaporeans. Content such as Anthony Chen's Wet Season, which earned quite the number of accolades, were Hooq originals. Which is why, when news of the fact that Hooq was shutting down spread just mere months later, it came as quite a nasty shock for those involved. Beneath the news of Hooq's success, cracks were already starting to show. Already in June of 2019, it was reported that the CEO of Singtel had her paycheck halved to 3.5 million. No, not down to 3.5 million. No, how would the elites pay for their glass houses now? Oh my! But this basically meant that Singtel was losing money, and Hooq was listed as one of the companies under this article. Or in other words, Hooq potentially was losing money for Singtel. The full amount lost was revealed when they filed for liquidation. They reportedly accumulated a loss of 220.8 million US dollars and liabilities up to 78 million US dollars. Now, I'm neither a business student nor an NFT owner, but that seems like a lot of money to lose. But how and why did Hooq decline? Well, one of the reasons would be good old-fashioned competition. In the 2019 Singapore streaming landscape, Hooq was honestly not the heaviest of contenders. Take a look at this table of streaming services by Asia 1. As I see it, most of these services have a targeted audience. View and MeWatch have a free model for people who want to watch Korean shows and local shows respectively. Singtel TV Go and StarHub Go Max are the channels that you likely would have subscribed to if you already have cable television or just want cable television. Lastly, if you want a plethora of highly rated Western TV shows and movies, as well as each platform's respective originals, just subscribe to Amazon Prime, Netflix, or HBO Go. Hooq only really falls into the last category. Sure, they have Western shows and movies, but so do the aforementioned Prime, Netflix, and HBO Go, and then some. I mean, look at the Netflix originals available. You got Peaky Blinders, El Camino, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, Wednesday, Better Squid Game, Worst Alice in Borderland, Record of Wreck. Okay, the second season was slightly better, and okay, maybe Hooq ain't so bad after. Hooq actually does have a niche, that being Asian shows and more localization options like translated subtitles and dubs. But I don't really hear as much praise for those series as I do for Korean or Western shows. Hooq might be slightly cheaper, but at that point just pay extra to get more and better shows. Or in other words, what I'm trying to say is Hooq is some tepid, off-brand, generic cola. And what the other streaming services are making is classic Coke. Oh my god. Another reason is that as more streaming platforms emerge, they would rightfully want their exclusive IPs back for their own catalog. An example is Disney Plus. Disney Plus would release in February of 2021, snatching Disney IPs like Marvel away from Hooq and into their own catalog instead. And finally, the company just wasn't making enough money to fund originals and marketing. The millions of US dollars they lost was just during the pre-pandemic season. Going into the pandemic season of 2020, it was understandable that they didn't want to potentially lose even more money. All of this culminated in the shutdown and liquidation of Hooq on the 30th of April 2020. Remember the article I mentioned in the beginning? Liquidation lethargy, the local filmmakers Hooq abandoned in debt. Well, the titular local filmmakers who were in debt were Harish Tilani and Terence Chia, also known as the Ministry of Funny. A comedy duo who first started on YouTube, they eventually went on to star in Asian comedy TV shows, before deciding to produce shows themselves. Their first show was titled She's a Terrorist and I Love Her, a show about a man driven to a sham marriage to clear his debt. However, he finds out his wife is a terrorist intent on blowing up herself and the nation. They decided to enter an open filmmaking competition in order to secure the resources they needed to make the show into a reality. In April 2019, they were informed that their script had beaten 500 others to win the competition, which secured them the funds to produce the shows and a platform to stream it. The platform? Hooq. According to the duo, they really had to hustle for this show. It was all hands on deck once they got the green light to commence filming. The reason being that they only had 6 months to deliver 8 30-minute episodes, 5 months to sort out the matter of hiring film crews, actors and writers, and 1 month to film the 8 episodes. Apart from the tight timeline, they also had the matter of finances to sort out. They were given a budget of 500,000 Singapore dollars, and their payment was to be split into tranches. Quote, it's 15% on signing the agreement, another 15% on the first day of principal photography, a further 15% when Hooq receives a rough edit of the first episode of the program, and then a final 15% on the final delivery of the first episode. End quote. Delayed payment wasn't ideal for them, as they needed to pay the involved freelancers their money in time, while simultaneously having a slight worry that maybe, just maybe, they wouldn't be paid the money that they were owed in its entirety. Well, whatever worries they had were dispelled when they just looked at the reputable companies behind Hooq: Singtel, Warner Brothers, and Sony Pictures. Surely they would get their money. After 30 days, much to their relief, the duo were able to meet their deadlines in time, and thus, She's a Terrorist and I Loved Her was finished and ready for its debut as a Hooq original. But yeah, as you know, a few months later, Hooq would shut down and the rest of She's a Terrorist and I Love Her was never aired at all for 4 years. But why was that? You know, there are other fish in the sea. Why didn't the Ministry of Funny just upload their series on YouTube after the fall of Hooq? It's a complicated matter, so read the full details on the article that Rice Media did, but in essence, prior to filming, the Ministry of Funny signed a contract that meant that the IP of She's a Terrorist and I Loved Her belonged to Hooq and not to them. Normally, this wouldn't be a problem. Putting aside matters of pride, at the end of the day, if you got commissioned to make a series to be an original on their platform, it makes sense if you didn't outright own all rights to the show. The duo said it as much themselves. But this only wouldn't be a problem if the Ministry of Funny were rightfully paid the money that Hooq owed them. And if it wasn't obvious already, they were not paid due to Hooq shutting down. I don't want to read out the whole article, so like I said earlier, read it yourself. But the duo are still owed around $200,000 to this day. Every email sent to try to get their money back has either been delayed or outright ignored, basically being stuck in limbo in regards to the fate and the remaining owed budget of their show. Their finished product was essentially gathering dust, not allowed to be shown to the rest of the world, and having only 3/5 of its $500,000 budget to account for. On the 27th of March 2023, the Ministry of Finance decided to just screw the legal repercussions they might face and to just release their show on YouTube. I've linked their channel for those curious about the show in the description below. So, what is there to learn about this tale? Honestly, I wanted to make this video because this seemed like a story that mainstream news outlets might not pick up, and as a result, people might not know what happened to those affected. Ministry of Finance's lesson after this whole ordeal was this. Maybe we can help anyone else who has gone through the same thing to know that, okay, there are people who have gone through this. We have all these platforms to use to tell our story. If it helps someone going through what we've been through feel more in control of their situation, that is good enough for us. It is about finding a way to survive.